after, that was about 35 minutes or so, where everybody sort of went still, at least here in the studio, was when the prosecutor started getting choked up reading each name, each one of those college students and their names.
Yeah, that shows you the emotion in the courtroom when Bill Thompson, the prosecuting attorney from Latah County, even he got choked up. We know family members in the courtroom, they were tearing up and crying as each of the victims' names was read aloud. Quite a moment, Kira, to hear Bryan Kohberger admit to these crimes. He has fought this now for nearly 3 years, admitting to the crime, sitting stoic, barely blinking at all, staring at prosecutors, and then admitting that, yes, he did murder the 4 University of Idaho students. We're waiting for the family members and the media to come out of the courtroom. Arcana Whitworth is going to be coming out of the courtroom in just a moment. There is an area over here where likely we're going to hear from prosecuting attorneys. Steve Gonsalves is walking up right now. The father of Kaylee, we will be hearing from him likely in the next little while. He is very much against this deal. He does not like it. He says that they made a deal with the devil, getting rid of the death penalty and going with this. But a lot of emotion in the courtroom, Kira.
Indeed. And Joseph Kohberger's parents, I'm reading, were there in the courtroom just feet away from their son as he was acknowledging that he willingly killed, murdered each one of these college students. Apparently his dad, Kohberger's dad, just shaking his head. We're looking, tell me who we're looking at right now. Okay, these are the families of each one of those victims right now. Joseph, what do you make? I mean, of course, we can understand how emotional this was for victims' families, but Kohberger's dad shaking his head, I can only assume, in disgust, hearing his son admit to killing these college students.
I'm certain that it was just a surreal moment, just a horrid nightmare for the parents. I think it was exceptional that they were there. I'm sure they're, ashamed, horrified, humiliated, disgusted, all the above. But it is their son, and they love him. And I think it's good for the justice system to see that we deal with human beings. And, a lot of times our clients don't tell us the truth. The truth doesn't come out until, much later, or the families don't know the full truth of everything. And that might have been the first time that the father was hearing everything, and to hear it out loud and to see it become real, in real time right before his eyes, that he could see and hear. I'm sure it was just an absolute nightmare for them, as it has been for everyone, the victim's family as well.
And Kim, I know our Alex Stone, you probably saw there just as we were chatting. You can see him here in the mix. Actually, he was trying to track down some of the families that were coming out of the courtroom. Is he talking to him right now? Is this live? No? Okay, gotcha. All right. This is live, but this is, and these are the parents of which student? Do you guys know? Okay, it's Goncalves' parents, and it is possible that they might take some questions. Our Alex Stone is, okay, here we go. Alex, take it away.
All right, Kira, the Gonsalves family is walking across the street here. Mr. Gonsalves, how are you feeling right now?
I'm pretty let down.
You're let down, you said?
Yeah.
You said earlier that you made a deal, they made a deal with the devil. You still feel that way?
Yeah. Bryan's the devil.
The defendant is the devil. Literally.
When you don't include the families in the deal, what other way should it be described?
Our family.
When you heard your daughter's name being read in court with those details, what was that like?
It was terrible, because we let her down. I let my daughter down with trusting in this.
As bad as you could possibly imagine.
Did your opinion of the Latah County prosecutor change after hearing him lay out the case that he would have presented?
No. Furthermore, he had the strongest case, and it was a case given to him by the FBI agent. And he said that's what they were thinking.
Is there anything he said that surprised you?
No.
All right. So, Kira, police are moving them along right now, Kira, but that's the Gonsalves family. Steve Gonsalves and his wife, they do not like this deal. You heard him say this was a deal with the devil. They want him to get the death penalty, which very soon here in Idaho is going to be a firing squad as the main means. They wanted that. They wanted a trial. They wanted to find out. They thought at trial they might learn where's the murder weapon? What was the motive in this? That they're not going to get that. Now, there's nothing saying they would get that at a trial. Maybe they wouldn't get it, but they feel like that they would have gotten more details, and otherwise we may never learn from Bryan Kohberger, Kira.
And also, Alex, I mean, first of all, I appreciate you, trying to get a comment from the parents. No doubt, this is one of those positions as a correspondent. You're kind of comfortably uncomfortable. You want to hear from the parents. You want to get their thoughts about what just happened in court, but at the same time, you want to give them their privacy and just sort of respect what they're going through. You can tell this is devastating for them. One thing that caught my attention, Alex, when you were asking them questions there, was Dad said he felt like he let his daughter down, that he let Kaylee down. As a parent, that's just crushing to hear.
It's absolutely crushing. And he specifically wanted what he says would be justice for Kaylee, and that justice was going to be Bryan Kohberger getting the death penalty. And he says anything less was not justice. He has fought for her. He has made it very clear that it was all about trying to get him the death penalty and get him to go to trial. And he feels like that they were let down by the Latah County prosecutors, who he says they had a meeting last Friday. There was a discussion about maybe there would be a deal in the works. And then Sunday they got a voicemail or an email saying it was a done deal and that they weren't able to really make their voices heard. Now, on the other side, Ethan Chapin's family, they say that they agree with this. This is a guaranteed conviction. There will not be years of appeals. Whatever would happen at trial, there would have been decades of appeals being a death penalty case, and none of that is going to go on. So there's two different sides on the victim's family. Some saying, thank goodness this is over. He is a convicted criminal. He's going to prison. He's admitted to all of his crimes. Others saying, no, this was about the facts coming out at trial and getting the death penalty.
Alex, such a great job reporting for us. Please, I want to bring Kim into this discussion now. Alex, if you see other parents, let us know. Grab them if you can. Let's hear from them. Give them voice. Kim, as you listen to this, listen to the prosecutor getting emotional, reading the names of those students, the judge asking Kohberger directly if he killed and murdered each one of these students, hearing Kohberger say yes to every single question. I guess, what are your thoughts on what you heard and also this last minute change in plea?
Well, on the first point, I mean, this is the kind of situation that will live in the public's consciousness for decades. It's absolutely horrific, devastating to see these parents, both of the defendant, but of course the victims, their children brutally murdered. It's everyone's worst nightmare as a parent. And that he sat there and very specifically, as is indicated, the judge had him lay out that he actually did the killings. It wasn't just yes to or no to whether he pled guilty. And I think there was some desire to actually get something that sounded like a confession from the families, and maybe arguably that did happen. On the other point I wanted to make, Kira, is we're having a national conversation lately about what it means to have due process. And as you know, I teach constitutional law. This is how the system works in our government, in that the prosecution developed extremely detailed evidence and filed motions in court to keep certain evidence out. That is, the defendant did. They didn't want the DNA evidence in. They did not want the prosecution to be able to get the death penalty. They wanted to be able to put a defense of an alibi. The judge said no to all of that. And presumably, I would assume the defense lawyers realized this is now a much more serious case, much more difficult for them to avoid the death penalty. And so the prosecution sat down down, made a proffer to the defendant, said, this is what we're going to show at trial. The jury's going to hear. And that's where we are, where in front of a court, open court, we have this defendant under oath admitting that he committed these crimes. This is what the due process clause here of the 14th Amendment, which applies to the states, this is what it ensures. It ensures fairness to the defendants. It ensures that these things are decided based on facts and law, and that he knowingly made this plea that will put him in prison for the rest of his life, presumably.
So, Joseph, just as Kim mentioned, it's a national conversation that she is having now as a law professor. Your thoughts on what Kim just had to say?
Sure. Yes, I think we saw the system play out today, and it was a very good example. There might be some criticisms that the judge was too stoic or too, involved in the processes going from step 1 to step 2 to step 3, but that's exactly how a judge should be. The prosecution did exactly what a prosecutor should do in this case. The defense did exactly what the defense did do in this case. The American people, through this example, can see really the best that our justice system has and how it can handle horrific situations. And, referring to due process, because of our nation's commitment to due process, we have, an organized and dignified and the best system of justice in the world, inarguably. No matter whatever problems else we might have, our system of justice still remains the best in the world. We saw it play out. The judge needed to make sure that there was a factual basis for the plea, otherwise it wouldn't be relevant or it wouldn't be legally acceptable. That's why the prosecutor, and in my experience, the prosecution and defense work together. You agree upon the set of facts. The prosecution read the set of facts into evidence meticulously, detailed, crossing every T, dotting every I for this plea to become legally secure so that it can't come back. And as everyone here has noted, now there are convictions. The parents of the victims have heard him admit to what he did. He will be life in prison times 4, and then burglary on top of that. So he will never get out of prison. There's no appeals, no nothing. So I think the families that did agree to the plea agreement, I think they will get some solace from this.
Alex Stone, I want to take it back to you outside court. I understand you have Kana with you now. Our Kana Whitworth was actually inside the courtroom as this was all going down. I know she can't hear me. You are my ears along with us, Alex, as this is happening so quickly. I appreciate you very much. But if we could just get color from inside the courtroom, what it was like, what she observed, and just you take over, Alex, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Kira, Kana just came out, and you were in there, the emotion in that courtroom. What was it like?
I mean, it was intense, as everyone can probably imagine from watching this. And for anyone that's followed this case, the emotions are long awaited, right? This is a stunning move that he would accept this plea deal. And when he did, what the judge asked first, though, was, do you admit to these murders? And then he named each one of the victims. And with every name that was read, it was like a striking blow in the courtroom. You could actually see the different family members start to break down, start to sob. And then Bill Thompson stood up and he read essentially what he thought happened that night, stuck really closely to the probable cause affidavit, which people might be familiar with from a couple of years ago. And a few things stood out, though, like the DNA match, Alex. We all knew they made the DNA match. They knew there was a knife sheath in the trash pull in Pennsylvania. He said specifically it was from a Q-tip from that trash pull, matched Bryan Kohberger's father. And that's how they got there. But then they went back. Then it was time for him to plead guilty, in which he did. Madison Mogan, Kaylee Gonzalez, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. Bryan Kohberger's parents also in the courtroom. His dad shaking his head the entire time.
Shaking his head no?
Just shaking his head. I'm not sure. It was a similar sentiment that I got from him in the courtroom in Pennsylvania, shaking his head, maybe disbelief in general. I think, though, one of the more emotional moments, though, was leaving, everyone exiting the courtroom, and that surviving roommate, Dylan Mortensen, the one who told authorities, I saw a masked man in the home that night, walk past me with bushy eyebrows. She was in the courtroom today. She left sobbing.
Even Bill Thompson, the prosecuting attorney,
Yeah.
he
was emotional as he was finishing up the summation of the case. There's emotion even there for the prosecutors.
You know, and that's a really good point here because their lives have been dedicated to this case now for some 2.5 years. They were ready to go to trial in just a matter of weeks. They were preparing, and the judge said that he was really unaware of this plea deal until it had been accepted. It came as a bit of a surprise to him. He apologized to the families for how quickly this had to move, and it's still going to move quickly. So now we're looking here at July 23rd for a sentencing hearing. At that point, I do think we'll have some victim impact statements read, so it'll be another emotional day in court. And, you know, the judge asked for decorum again. I've never seen security like this at the courthouse.
Yeah, security is very tight.
There was a lot of security in the courtroom, too, both officers in uniform and plainclothed as well, and they were scattered throughout the seats with all of us and with all of the family members as well. So we'll look ahead to this sentencing hearing, and at that point, they think that they might lift this non-dissemination, this order, this gag order that has bound everybody, which is why there's been so much secrecy involved in this case.
It's been so tight, that gag order. You've spent so much time with the families. You've gotten to know them. Is this closure for them? I mean, we know that we just heard from Steve Gonsalves a moment ago. He's angry about it, but is it closure in some way?
Yeah, it's a tough question. And you know from speaking with Steve and some of the other family members that for every family, the answer is different. Is this closure? Is this justice? Does this allow you to move on? For every family and for every person in the family, it's different. You know, you talk to them, nothing's going to bring their children back. The Chapins did tell us, look, they're here today. This was their first time in the courtroom, and they were here today in support of this plea bargain. This is something that it sounds like they wanted from that statement. The Gonsalves family clearly very unhappy. I'm sure what this does for some people, it allows them to move on. Also, current police chief Anthony Dallinger in Moscow was also in the courtroom today. You have to wonder how the Moscow Police Department is feeling today, perhaps a bit vindicated, because they were judged quite harshly by this nation during that nearly 7-week manhunt when everybody thought they've got nothing.
And it was proved today they had the right guy.
Certainly.
All right, Kana, thank you.
Of course.
Ken Whitworth, they're in the courtroom a moment ago, and we're waiting now to find out if anybody's going to come out, whether it be the prosecuting attorney or any of the attorneys who are going to come out and talk, Kira.
All right, you let us know, and we'll head right back to you, Kim, Joseph, Alex, and Kana. Thanks, guys, so much. Appreciate you all. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.